Hey everybody, I hope you are enjoying yourselves on this beautiful Saturday in June. The weather outside couldn't be more beautiful. In fact, I was out in my garden earlier today and I thought to myself, it is so beautiful out, I swear I could cry. It's just amazing. And I think when you live in a climate like New England, these days in June, you just appreciate so much because we don't have that many of these gorgeous days. So anyway, I'm here today to talk about my month of May. And I don't know why, but just sort of thinking back on it, it feels like it was really busy, that there was a lot going on. And I'm not exactly sure why, but that's just my sense of it. So I have a few decks here to talk about, a couple of new ones and several that I've had for a while. I have some books I would like to talk about, and the herbal tea that I'm drinking is nettle spearmint. And nettle was the herb that I worked with in May. It was coming into its peak. I did get stung any number of times, even though I tried really hard not to. It just doesn't seem to matter how hard you protect yourself or how much you protect yourself. When you're in a nettle patch, somehow you get stung at least once. But that's part of the medicine of nettle, right? It stings, so it's okay. All right, so let's talk about decks. So this is a deck that was new to me in May, the Ancestor Spirit Oracle cards. And I really didn't end up using it too much, just a few times. I haven't read the guidebook yet, so I'm going to continue to work with it in June. But I just wanted to say it is really wonderfully multicultural. And I really like seeing that, especially when you're talking about ancestor spirits. It's nice to be, well, it's always nice to be inclusive, let's just face it. But I guess especially when we're talking about ancestors. So have not used these cards in any sort of way of like thinking, okay, what was my past life or what ancestor wants to speak to me today. I was just pulling a card and reading the message and taking that as the message. And I may just continue to use the oracle that way. As I said, I just like that there's so much representation in the deck. So here are a few cards. This is in the Caves in France. So explore your creative side. This woman, I believe, is from Mongolia. Look at that bear. Remember who you are. Here we see some Polynesian, connect with water, which I think is beautiful. Psychic strength. Enjoy new beginnings. I think this guy's supposed to be Arthurian. Beautiful. This guy's Peruvian. Beautiful, playing the pipes. This I love. It's Mother Earth. But look, she's an elder. I think she should be an elder. And she's sort of greenish, which I love too. Here's another card with an elder. So many decks you don't really see older folks on. Beautiful. This is Aboriginal Australian, which, look at that card. Tune in and connect. I think that card is beautiful. Have courage. And last but not least, I love this one. I did draw this one, whole self health. So like I said, I'm just using this deck currently as a regular old oracle deck. I haven't read the guidebook, so I'm not exactly sure what the intention of the creator was in terms of how to use it. But I have enjoyed the few cards that I've pulled. So another deck that was new to me in May is this one. It's the Roar Oracle, and it's by MJ Cullinane. She did the Crow Tarot and Urban Crow Oracle. So she's done quite a few decks. And so I have several decks that actually play the same role that this deck would. So why did I buy it? Well, I bought it because there were some women portrayed. So it's a woman-centric, feminist, honoring and valuing the contributions that women have made throughout history. So there were some women in this deck that I haven't ever seen portrayed or represented in any of the feminist decks that I have. So here's Mary Fields, and she was a stagecoach driver and was a badass and said, yeah, I don't need a man along with me. I got a gun. So yay, Mary. Queen Nanny, a healer and a psychic. Here's the Fox sisters. So if any of you are familiar with the Spiritualist Church, these sisters founded the Spiritualist Church. And the verdict is out on them. Some feel like they were shams and tricksters and shysters, and others think that they were clairvoyant and psychic mediums. So there's kind of two sides of the coin for the Fox sisters. This might have been the reason I bought the deck. Julia Child. When you think about the cooking shows, the Food Network that are on today, she started that. Julia Child was the first cooking show. And if you've ever seen any of her older shows, the ones from the beginning, they are so amateurish and they are so real. I mean, amateurish, I don't mean that in a bad way. They were just real. They were staged, but like she'd cut herself, something would go wrong. Her message to cooks was never apologize. If something didn't come out the way you expected it to, just serve it and don't say a word. And I like that. I take that to heart because I have often said, oh, this didn't come out the way it was supposed to. No. You cooked for these people. Serve it and let them eat it. This is Patsy Mink. I've never seen her in a deck. Althea Gibson. I think she might be in our tarot, but she was the first woman of color, African-American woman, to play at Wimbledon. Maria Tallchief, a First Nation ballerina. Louise Hay, I've never seen her on a card. And I mean, think what we will of Hay House and its decks. That was quite the company that Louise Hay manifested. And I do think that she, when she was starting in this business, was genuine. I'm not sure about what that company's all about now, but I think under her direction, it was genuine. Pixie, love her. She is in the Vampire Tarot by Robert M. Place. She's the Queen of Cups. And I traded for that deck when it was out of print solely so I could have the Pixie card. And I'm really glad I do have it, but here we see her represented in this oracle. I believe MJ said she only included women who were no longer alive. And so this lady just barely made it in, I guess. Rachel Carson, another one of my heroes. And then Ki Jin. So she was Chinese. She was considered to be a feminist revolutionary. and was considered to be a liberator of women in China in her day. So there's some of the Roar cards. Now, there's one drawback that I've discovered from this deck. I posted my first pull. It was Audra Lord. I can't remember who the third person was. And Dion Fortune and a third person. And I don't remember who the third person was. But a friend of mine messaged me and told me that Dion Fortune was rabidly homophobic. So I am not going to use that card because I don't, even for myself, I'm not even talking about posting it online, but I just was like, okay, well, I didn't know that about her. And I researched it after my friend told me that. And in fact, he is right. She was. So I guess I'm like, okay, so feminists who are homophobic, feminists who are racist, white feminists who are racist. No, we need to, I mean, I know now our term is intersectional, but back when I first started my social activism in the late 70s and 80s, the term that we talked about was the interconnectedness of all these oppressions and all these isms, racism, sexism, homophobia, all these things are interconnected. The roots are woven together. And so with these roots woven together, we need to pull out those roots and sow new seeds. And so that's it. We need to think in terms of course, as an herbalist, I'm always thinking in plant terms, but yeah, so let's pull out the stuff that no longer serves us and plant new seeds or sow new seeds. All right, so that was that. I was also gifted 3 decks by friends, unsolicited, in the month of May. And my heartfelt thanks goes out to those friends if you end up watching this video. So one of them was a deck by Carol Herzer. One of them was sort of an Orisha deck. And then the other one is this one, the Star Seeker. So I got this towards the end of the month, and I've not used it very much, just a few times, but I do plan on actively using it for the month of May. It's that rose petal loveliness, this beautiful sort of purplish edging. It's a little tough to shuffle. I have really small hands and I have to shuffle sideways, so it's nearly impossible to shuffle sideways. Let's get a little closer. So there is a fairly decent representation of folks in this deck. There's even a few gray heads, so there's a few elders. No differently abled, no, the genders seem sort of cis-ish, if that's a term, and everybody's pretty thin. I don't know when artists will start listening to what we have to say about this. But it's a beautiful deck, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it a little bit more deeply in the month of June. So anyway, that is the Star Seeker. Sorry. There's a lot of decks out there now with Star in the name, right? All right, so that is a lovely deck. I enjoyed quite a bit. And as I said, I'm looking forward to using it in June. So let me just slip these cards away before they fall all over the floor, like usually happens when I'm doing these videos. So another deck that I used in May is this one. It's Messages from the Hummingbirds, and it's by Roseo Alarcon, and the artist is Luisa Santiago. And I've only ever known Roseo as a from going to herbal conferences. She is a very talented herbalist. She practices energy healing and root working and work with plants and healing you on a spiritual level via plant spirit medicine. And she is from a long line of women who do this kind of healing work. So she has also connected with hummingbirds. In fact, they just come and land on her. She'll put her hand out and they'll come and land on her. And she decided to create this deck called Messages from the Hummingbirds. And on each card, there is a plant on the back and a hummingbird on the front. And one of the things I learned from Roseo about hummingbirds is they're only found in the Americas, so only in North, Central, and South America. And some of them might have scattered a little bit over into the Caribbean, but they are not found in other parts of the world. So how lucky are those of us in those continents who can appreciate and get to visit with hummingbirds in person. So a friend of mine and I each bought this deck from Roseo, and my friend and I meet via iPhone, FaceTime, every Monday, and we pull a new hummingbird card, and then we meditate first, and then we pull the card, and then that card stays with us for a week or so. And I had an experience with this same friend that involved hummingbird. We were sitting out on my deck several years ago, and I said to her, all right, we were doing some tarot and oracle work, and I had an animal deck. And I said, all right, I want to pull a card to see who wants to step forward to be a spirit guide or an animal ally for me right now. No sooner were the words out of my mouth when this hummingbird flew up right at eye level and, flapped, I'd say 30 seconds to a minute. And my friend and I looked at each other and said, guess we don't need to pull the card. I got my answer. So ever since then, like I said, that was about 3 or 4 years ago. Ever since then, I've just felt this strong connection to hummingbird, and hummingbirds come to me when I'm in my garden a lot, and I get messages from them, and I just feel a strong connection to them. They're so joyful and uplifting, and they're guiding me in terms of, especially when I'm making flower essences. It's like they'll fly to the plant. When I go outside to make a flower essence, one will come and fly by a particular plant until I catch them out of the corner of my eye and say, oh, okay, that's who I need to work with today. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, needless to say, this deck really sparked my interest. And this is the card that I'm currently working on. And if you notice the name, so I really don't know Latin, but it's Healy Angelus Viola. So I thought, okay, sun, angel, purple. So purple sun angel. And that is the name of this hummingbird. The plant on the back is eucalyptus. So this plant and eucalyptus are paired. And so I had just gotten some dried eucalyptus from a woman I know who owns an herbal shop here in Massachusetts. And she said that they have started to use dried eucalyptus instead of white sage. And sure enough, it smells almost the same when you burn it as white sage does. And so I get all those same feelings when I burn the eucalyptus as I did when I burned white sage. And I don't know if it's a conditioned response because they smell so similarly. But anyway, it's something that we can use instead of white sage. So just a heads up for folks. So I did do a tarot challenge in the month of May by Josephine Hardman. I think her, not YouTube, her Instagram is Healer Josephine or at Healer_Josephine, something like that. And she does a lot of challenges. So this one was Visibility Tarot Challenge. And so I thought, you know, I don't want to pull just one card. I feel like that's kind of, you lose context. So I decided to use two of my current favorites, the Gentle Tarot and the Morning Calm Oracle. This is by Mari in the Sky, and this is by Sao Kelleher. And I really love both these decks quite a bit. So I just kind of piled the two decks next to each other, and I thought I'd just kind of hold up two at a time. This isn't planned in any way. So here are the first two. So 4 of Thunder is 4 of Swords, and we get stop. So I thought, okay, that's pretty good. This is Root of Wands, so I think that's the Knight of Wands, and Forgiveness. I don't see as big a connection there, but how about this one? 7 of Stones and Abundance. So it's like, you know, do the work, plant the seeds, tend the garden, water the plants, you know, hold the soil, and that's what you get in the end, abundance. This is Harvest of Stones, so the King of Pentacles and Brave Step Forward. So I can see a connection with these two. And then, oh, I was hoping this one would show up. This one, Ocean Magic. This card was when I first got Morning Calm Oracle, I pulled a card to say, you know, how will what will this deck bring? What, you know, how will I work? Just, you know, just your first card. And it's Ocean Magic. And I thought, okay, I'm going to love this deck because I'm an ocean girl for sure, through and through, year round. So the pairing here is the Magician and the Ocean card. And this card came up multiple times in the month of May as I was doing the challenge. So here we have 2 of Thunder, 2 of Swords, and Crane Spirit. So of course, to me, this is a representation of air, and I see the Suit of Swords as air. So I had some lovely pairings with these two decks. I continue to use them regularly. I'm really a fan. So, books. I read a lot in April and May. So one book that I read that was a library book was called The Paris Library. And it was actually about a library that was an American funded library in Paris. And this book takes place in Paris, 1939 it starts. So if you know your history, you know what's about to happen in Paris in that time period. So it does talk about how the Nazis invaded and took over France, really, but in particular Paris, the hard times that folks went through. And the the protagonist is an American woman who is a French woman who is working at that library. She ends up in the United States in the 80s. And so the book goes back and forth between the late 30s and the in Paris in the 80s, and I think she goes to Montana. Anyway, it was fascinating book, and I enjoyed it. It was, wasn't a super heavy read. I also read this one, The Sun Crossed Sisters of Tuscany. This was a fun read. I really enjoyed it. This too had that theme of present day, actually New York. I think it was Brooklyn. And then they alternated with scenes during World War II and Italy this time. Another enjoyable read. And then I read this one, The Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerizing Girl. This is by Theodora Goss. And I just have to say, this is the third book in what is a series. Let me just tell you, she dedicates it to Mary Shelley, Mother of Monsters. So this is a book that, as I said, the first one that you would start with is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. The second one is European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman. And then this is the third one in the series. And the stars or the protagonists of this are all daughters or sisters of kind of famous monsters, or, like vampires, Frankenstein, Dr. Moreau, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. No, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And also there's a little bit of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson thrown in too. So it's a really fun series. Nice to see women playing roles in these kinds of books. It was a thoroughly enjoyable read. I've loved all three of them, and I recommend them. So this I actually finished the last day of April, so April 30th. The Forest of Souls. I got at the end of January. So February, March, April. I was reading it for 3 months. And maybe that makes you think ill of the book, but to the contrary. I loved this book so much. I read it slowly. I underlined, and I have notes all over it. So this is by the great Rachel Pollack. And it is a tarot book. But what Rachel does in this book that I think is so wonderful is she does tarot readings, but for these big philosophical... Guess someone's at the door. These big philosophical questions that we can ask in life. Who am I? Where did I come from? I should have written down some of the readings that she did, but this is a wonderful book. And what I like about it is there's so many, hey guys, there's so many beginner books, but this is really, I would say, more of an intermediate advanced book. So I love this book. I'm going to actually read it again. I recommend it wholeheartedly, 100%, no hands down. So I think I will end. I was going to go into some books I'm reading in June, but I think the barking dogs are telling me it is time to finish. So I hope that you had a good May, and that you had interesting cards and books and herbs and gems and whatever it is that floats your boat. I'm feeling like we're just in that abundant time of year, and I'm just enjoying myself so much, and I hope you are too. Thank you for stopping by. I would love to hear your comments about what you were up to in the month of May, any books or decks or anything that you would like to recommend. I'm always open to suggestion.